first one, if you're joining us late, just talking about canceling and closing down credit card accounts, especially if they're good. You definitely want to watch that. The next one is number 2 of the mistakes is missing payments. Now that you would think that'd be number 1, Chip, I would imagine, but specifically, here's what's important. When lenders are looking at, and again, I'm speaking in the automotive world, I believe this is probably the same criteria as most people would look at, but missing payments in itself is something you could still overlook, but you have to look deeper. And what I mean by that is there's 3 things that lenders are looking at. They're looking for, well, let me ask you first. What do you think 3 things they're looking for as it relates to missing payments?
They're looking for your credit score.
Okay.
They're looking for how many you missed.
Okay.
And how big a payment you missed.
Okay. Half right. The things they're looking for is how frequent are your late payments. That's one of the things they're looking at. They want to know. In other words, you have some late payments, but once again, if you've missed some payments, but it was 3 years ago, but you've been good for the last 3 years. One of the big things in the car industry what they look for, Chip, is you could have rough credit, but if you have had a car with Mazda Finance for 48 months. And you've paid 42 or 48 pretty much like clockwork, and really the 6 months that you were behind was in the first 6 months you bought the car, and you've had 5 months of payment history or 42 months of payment history that are good, that's a viable candidate to buy a car.
I got you.
So you got to look at how frequent are those payments. The other thing is, how recent the payments are. The next thing is how frequently are you late? Okay, so basically how many times are you late? Are you late every other month? Are you late every month? Are you late every 3rd month? Those are the other things they're looking at. And then the last thing is how severe your late payments were. And what I mean by that is if you were late, we can explain 30 days, right?
Yeah.
90 days late, that's hard to explain. There's something going on. 90 days late, back to back to back could be another thing that's tough to look at. So when you're looking at missing payments, don't think because you've missed some payments in the past that you're dead in the water. You still can get credit. You can still borrow money, especially as it relates to the automotive industry. But they are looking at those 3 things. How frequent are your late payments? How recent are the late payments? And how severe, how many days are you behind? So that's
Louie,
number 2.
Louie, let me ask you this. How much input does the car dealer have in that? I mean, isn't it mostly the bank you're talking about? I mean, can the car dealer go, hey, he's only missed 3 payments in the last 48 months, I say we go with it. But the bank says,
Good. That's a good point. The reality is remember, as it relates to buying a car, the lender, all they're seeing is a piece of paper, and they're getting the colorful individual through the business manager. So in other words, when I call the creditor on behalf of Chip Linus, I'm talking to Southeast Toyota about Chip. They see Chip's paper. They see his credit score, his late payments, and I'm telling the story. I'm explaining to them, well, wait, hold on a second. And before I even, and believe it or not, it's funny because, the customers think that they come to the dealership and they fight over the best deal, right? The customers fight, the salespeople fight. They're trying to agree to a term and a figure that everybody could agree to, right? Deal's done. Well, if it's a marginal deal, the lender and the finance manager fight to get the deal approved the way it was structured. So literally, I remember when I worked in the business office years ago, I would grab the file, and I would take the consumer's credit application out, and I would take the consumer's credit file out, and I would look at every piece of credit that I thought had any positive history whatsoever, and I'd highlight it. And then every piece of negative credit, I would circle it because I knew it was coming up. And then I'd call the client. I'd say, okay, I'm getting ready to call the bank just so I'm on the same page. Again, in 2002, I see here that you were 90 days past on this, but you came right back. Oh, yeah, that was when I had to go part-time because, my husband left me, but we got back together. Okay, great. And I'm taking notes because I'm the one that has to make that picture come alive.
I got you.
You know?
Yeah.
But most consumers don't even know that happens.
Yeah, you're in the corner fighting for them.
Oh, yeah, because you think about it, when a dealer or a dealership puts together a deal structure, nobody knows this, but when you leave the finance office, it's not approved. Mm-hmm. It's not approved until the bank acknowledges that it's going to be a done deal, but you structure the deal based off of the rate sheet and all the information, the criteria, and that's where a lot of customers get really upset, and rightfully so, because you have some dealers out there that will actually what we call spot deliver a car, and they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that deal is not going to get approved. They already know it. They're going to let the customer drive in the car for a couple of days, fall in love with the car, show their neighbors, go to church in the car, and then call them back and say, hey, you know what? We weren't able to work it out as followed. Come on, let's talk about it. Next thing you know, they say, We can do the deal, but we need $3,000 more.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens. And so, again, I think you have to realize, from a dealership perspective, it's all about the dealership culture. It's about doing the right thing. It's about reputation and what's going on in the marketplace. I mean, obviously that's a bad deal. But so as it relates to missing payments, remember, if you've missed payments, you're okay. The key is you don't want to be missing payments and not paying people for 90 days and 120 days. That's a big boo-boo. And then you want to make sure that your late payments are not that recent. The further out they were, the better off you're going to be. So that's some facts.
If you have, let's say you have stellar credit, you haven't missed a payment, you're a good guy, credit score's good. Is the deal already finalized, or can you lower your price a little bit if you see, man, this guy, it's going to be a home run. We're not going to have any trouble getting it through the bank. So
well, here's the deal. The reality is the people that have superb credit are genuinely the toughest customers to make any kind of money on, because twofold. Number one, they're very diligent in their approach of how they approach everything, and they shop 5 different places, 8 different places, 8 different banks. So you can't just because it's a jam up perfect deal, 700 beacon score, gonna get approved, not a problem. There's really nothing special that can be done on our end, just simply for the fact that it's going to get approved, whether it takes 1 day or whether it takes 5 hours or whether it takes 7 days to get approved. But to your point, I wish we could, but at the end of the day, the customer that comes in that has just a jam up deal, that person's going to have no problem buying a car, whether it was for me or anybody.
I thought it might just be a little less hassle factor. You're not going to have to go through 50 pages of stuff and be explaining everything.
No, I'll tell you, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people that have good credit, let's say a 680 score, and this customer wants the 0% that they saw on TV, right? Mm-hmm. But the 0% is for 700 or above. But the customer at 680 has, perfect credit. So you think, logically, this should get done. Sometimes we work harder on that deal, getting that customer 0%, because 20 percentage points off their beacon score, than we do somebody that has a 500 beacon score that we're trying to get approved for 18%. Gotcha. Wow. So sometimes they're not as laid up as they could be. But at the end of the day, we want to do that. We want to do. I don't care what the scenario is. We want to do the best we can with every single client. Period.
Very good. All right. Back with more with Chip and Louie. It is Super Thursday. We're looking at 75 degrees, 412. More coming up on Doc 103.9. And we'll let out the phone number, 706-453-4140, star 1039 if you're an AT&T wireless customer.